Hey guys, it's Matt. Just finished up season 5 of Boardwalk Empire, and I talked about a lot of truth that had already come out of the HBO series Boardwalk Empire about the Prohibition era. I talked about it in the video, what was it, 3 or 4 weeks back, about the real reasons for prohibition and the banning of alcohol in the United States between 1920 and, 1920 and 1933. Of course, there's no coincidence there. Boardwalk Empire has a massive truth drop at the very end, and that's the basis of this video. So let me tell you what it is, and you can decide if you want to stick with me for the rest here. It's a transition from the criminals, the stereotypical criminals presented during the Prohibition era, and most of Boardwalk Empire is about the Al Capone types running the bootleg whiskey down from Canada, up from Mexico, or in from Europe, and landing on the beaches, and how mob bosses increase their power 100-fold over because of Prohibition, how Prohibition created the modern notion of organized crime in the United States. The very end, or season 5, it's a transition, a criminal transition from, as repeal is coming for Prohibition, the old-fashioned gangster is still there, but you can see they're going to lose their power to a large degree. The bootleggers, the ones that run the heroin, the new criminals will be in the stock market. It's a clear truth drop in Boardwalk Empire in the last 3 episodes of the last season, season 5. Just a minute and a half or so on Boardwalk Empire, if you haven't seen it, before talking about the truth revealed at the end, about the real new age criminals will be in the stock market. It is very subtle, but very clear. I doubt anybody that doesn't see the world the way we see it, watching that show would interpret it like this. I doubt this video's been made before, so I'll get to that as soon as I can. Steve Buscemi, is that his name? He was Mr. Pink in Reservoir Dogs and was in Armageddon. He's been in a lot of things, of course. He's Nucky Thompson, who is this corrupt treasurer, but the crime boss of Atlantic City. There's a real historical figure he's related to. They're trying to tie Nucky Thompson to this guy, Enoch or Nucky Johnson, in Atlantic City. But I don't really know how true what is presented in Boardwalk Empire is to the original or real Enoch Johnson. Anyway, Prohibition comes, and a small-time criminal, Nucky Thompson, because of Prohibition, and now there's tens of millions of dollars to be made a month, even in that the dollar of that era, he becomes a major crime boss, now with ties to the major crime syndicates and families in New York, and he has run-ins with them, and Al Capone comes in to play in Chicago. Much of Boardwalk Empire is Al Capone's rise. He's a very low level. He's only a big cheese in season 5. It's pretty interesting. It's a TV show, but I think overall, in general, it's historically accurate. I think these mob bosses were relatively 2-bit or low level. They show them in Chicago, where Al Capone is a very junior. It's hookers and whorehouses and managing the docks and warehouses and payoffs, small time. Then all the crime bosses and mafia families said, they wrote letters, thank you letters, I think, to the U.S. Senate and U.S. Congress. They said all the crime bosses, maybe what's like depicted in Godfather 2. Again, that Vito Corleone shows he's a 2-bit little criminal too. I'm sure he took full advantage of Prohibition, wrote a little thank you letter. Thank you so much for making us thousands of times more powerful. Now, the U.S. Senate and Congress had no idea this was going to happen. And that this fake truth is actually presented in Boardwalk Empire, where one of the FBI agents that works for the newly appointed Director Hoover, again, I don't know exactly if they get the timeline correct on this. Maybe they take some liberties there. It doesn't matter. The message or the truth drop, I think, is the same. We're newly appointed, or I think it's Director Hoover, or maybe it's right before he got to the top spot. He's still a big cheese in the FBI. Someone's saying to him, these are crime organizations that are like corporations that have developed. And he's like, no, that's not possible. In the beginning, he's like, no, there's no way. There's no way these crime bosses have gotten their infrastructure or logistics is to that degree. Like, no, that's not possible. Oh, sure. Like we talked about a few weeks ago in that Prohibition video, they couldn't have seen what would be coming. They had no idea. They were just trying to look out for you. The U.S. House of Representatives, the Senate, the FBI, other different forms of law enforcement, whatever, customs, they would have no idea that mob bosses and mafiosa infrastructure would gain hundreds or thousands of times more power and influence because of Prohibition. They couldn't have foreseen it coming. They were just looking out for you. But you could have gone into a first grade classroom, said, kids, stop playing with those crayons. Can I talk to you kids? Just for a second, get back to those crayons. If we take alcohol away, what do you think will happen? A little, yeah, daddy and mommy drink it every night. Well, we take it, and everybody down the block drinks it. Mafiosa will come in and supply it. That's right, little kids. Now get back to coloring. They would fucking know. And if anybody with a brain larger than a paramecium could easily predict the outgrowth of organized crime, then is it really a stretch for somebody like me to come along and say, well, if it was predicted, then it probably was planned? And somebody like my friend Tony, oh, you're going too far. Now you're being one of those people, one of those conspiracy people. Okay, it's a trade-off, Matt. You see, I know Hoover is depicted in Boardwalk Empire, says, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what's happening with these crime families. We could have never predicted that. They probably did know, Matt. But see, it's a trade-off. They knew organized crime would grow up, but the trade-off was they cared about the people. They cared about taking the vice and the alcohol away because they care about people so much. Isn't that funny, guys? What we know about this, quote, control structure, for anybody to put forth the notion they're doing it for the people because they care about health. I mean, that is something everybody listening to the words coming out of my mouth would say is just absolutely impossible. Nothing is ever done because they truly care about the people. If you look back over history, I'm sure there's many things people can point to that say this benefited people, but if it benefits the people, that it's not for that reason, and it's like a tertiary side effect, whatever that means. It's for them. See, it's the similar principle of the king eats, right? It's just Louis the whatever. The pieces of chicken fall all over his robe, and little pieces of bread, and it's just even a little spot of wine falls on his robe, and the dogs and the rats, they can eat off the robe. They benefit. But is it for the dogs and the rats, whatever falls on the damn half-eaten, chewed-up pieces of chicken? No, it's for the king. The people benefit. It's a tertiary perverted side effect. And just like we looked at a few weeks ago with Prohibition, they'll try to convince you. History will try to convince you. Fromers tried to warn you. Oh, Matt, you don't understand this temperance movement. The grassroots temperance movement through the churches to ban alcohol was so powerful. Oh, sure. Yeah, no, that wouldn't be the excuse to ban the alcohol, to get the other effect. I mean, to transition the country into the place they want to put it. Little temperance movements. Give me a break. If they did gain power, it's because the not milk or the structure itself supported them to gain their power so they could be the front men and women for this whole bullshit idea about prohibition. It's so planned and organized. They're so creepy and nasty in the way they do business. This is a hardcore pipe-hitting adversary we have here, these sons of bitches. All right, let me try to focus on the main point. The bathroom boys, the few that are left, are very upset. The main point is the last, say, 3 episodes of Boardwalk Empire Season 5 shows a very subtle truth drop, but to me it's absolutely there. Martin Scorsese is involved when Season 1 is executive producer on this. A transition from the old-style mafiosa crime bosses and mob organizations in Chicago, New York, whatever, Philadelphia, Atlantic City, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, where they just try to battle for turf and they have their Tommy guns and they threaten with violence, Sopranos type stuff. A transition to the new style of criminal, which will be within the letter of the law, the stock market. See, here's how it comes to be. Again, 5 seasons, Nucky Thompson, Steve Buscemi is just battling it out with all these larger crime families and larger mafioso organizations, somehow surviving, but also thriving and growing via his little fiefdom in Atlantic City. Then towards the end of Season 5, I'll be as quick as I can with this, but I have to give you some background, and I have to give some things away if you plan on watching it, but I can't continue if I don't. One of the real hardcore mafia types, crime bosses, kidnaps his nephew, it is, and he cares deeply for his nephew. And they really put the squeeze on Enoch Thompson. And basically they say, you need to give up your whole Atlantic City operation to get the kid back. And he basically says, I'll do it. I'll turn the whole operation over to your New York syndicate. And even his brother in the show's like, what are you doing? And people watching the show, hope at this point, expecting hopefully season 6, 7, which never came. It ended with season 5. People watching the show are going, what do you mean you're going to turn it all over? That leaves no show. It's strange to everybody. But once the truth comes out, and I doubt anybody, just regular popcorn crunchers watching the show, would take the truth away from it that we would, understanding how this world really works. But he's giving it all away? What? Okay, but he has been, I guess over the last few episodes, back in touch with his ex-wife. I'll try to be as quick about this as I can, but there's some background necessary. His ex-wife got involved in New York City with originally a real shady real estate developer, almost like a scam stuff. Then I guess it transitioned to a stockbroker. But the whole office is very shady, very almost criminal, but operating inside the letters of the law. I guess you float rumors about a company going under and you short the stock. That's all legal, I guess, right? So it's that sort of thing. It's kind of, I guess, pump and dump per like the movie Boiler Room with Vin Diesel. That's not legal, but that you can, push it right up to the edge of legality. And she's there learning how to manipulate the stock market, and Nucky Thompson's back in touch with her. And Joe Kennedy, they introduced Joe Kennedy, the father of JFK, as a character who is involved with these brokerages as well. And of course, it's very clear, of course, that he's doing things legally in this newly fledgling stock market, but shorting stocks or whatever. And he has ties with Nucky Thompson and some of the crime bosses, but it's, they won't go that far and say that the character in Boardwalk Empire, Joe Kennedy, is a criminal. But he really is. Anyway, so at the end, some things, Nucky Thompson's in the process of turning over his whole criminal organization to the mafia bosses in New York, yet at the same time, he's making millions of dollars in the stock market. So as the dust settles in the end, you say he doesn't even need the crime organization anymore. He can make more money in a day. I think in one of the scenes, he makes $2 million in one day, which would be, $250 million today, which he could never make running the booze and doing all the illegal activity and being a mob boss and a crime boss. So he's now the bigger criminal. So in fact, he gave it all away, but it's good that he gave it away. Now he's free and clear. He's operating inside the system. They're no longer going to investigate him. They're no longer going to try to put him in jail. He's a bigger criminal, but he's doing it legally. That's the message. It's incredible. So I go research Joe Kennedy, or Joseph Kennedy, again, the father of JFK, and what's being presented in Boardwalk Empire is pretty accurate. He is some sort of mega financier, absolutely involved in the stock market, raising money for this part of Hollywood. All this finance and financier type activities related to the stock market. Then the political stuff starts with Joe Kennedy. He gets involved somehow with FDR before FDR becomes president. Then I don't know if it's a payback or when FDR becomes president, guess what Joseph Kennedy becomes? The chair of the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which oversees the stock market. What? So let me get straight. So Boardwalk Empire shows this guy is, it's shady. Okay, he has shady ties, connections. Enoch Thompson. Enoch Thompson, Steve Buscemi, we want to like him, right? But this is hardcore stuff. He has killed many, many people. He's a real mob boss, okay? We still like him as a character. We want to root for him, just like maybe we want to root for Michael Corleone. But he's still absolutely a criminal. He has a hit count and all this stuff, of course. He's really a lowlife. Joseph Kennedy has a relationship with him and other mob bosses, and then in real life, you go and investigate, and he's the head of the SEC. Well, I wonder where all the Kennedy back in the day money, billions, came from. Oh, I wonder. Matt, you're not implying that Joseph Kennedy may have done something, say, not up and up? No. I wouldn't imply that at all. And Boardwalk Empire wouldn't imply that with him having ties to the largest crime bosses. I guess Boardwalk Empire is saying nothing either. There's actually a scene in one of the last episodes where they make it seem like this Joe Kennedy really doesn't yet understand how the stock market can be manipulated. And Nucky Thompson's wife, who she now knows because she's been involved originally as a secretary, just came in making, the equivalent of 50 cents a day, just pushing papers around. But she learned, and she actually contributed or helped stage some of the scams. So they brought her into the inner circle. So she learned about the scams, originally real estate, then it transitioned to the stock market. She knows the scams, and she actually, in the last few episodes, they show her teaching Joe Kennedy. She says, no, we should sell now. No, it's going to drop. We're shorting, and then we buy back at the bottom. Very similar to Trading Places in the last scene with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd in Trading Places. They have insider information, and it's Joe Kennedy about the repeal. I guess this had to do with a grain company, but it's more about the insider information about the repeal that's coming for Prohibition. See, they knew it was coming. The real criminals, the new brand of criminal, is the financier, the stock market criminal with insider information. Like that scene, again, in Trading Places, where Mortimer and Randolph meet, Mr. Beeks has the insider information, has that crop report. Meet me in the orange section of the parking garage. Orange, that's good. Randolph says they have the insider information. It's very similar to what is presented with Margaret, the ex-wife of Nucky Thompson, the crime boss from Atlantic City. She's, again, I didn't mention this, they've been divorced or separated. She went off to New York years ago on her own, no longer part of his empire, getting his money, making her own way, but learning about the real scam, the scam of the new style criminal, the financier, and the stock market criminal. Actually, Boardwalk Empire actually shows her teaching Joe Kennedy, the father of JFK, the scam of shorting, the scam of floating rumors, a gigantic, mega, massive truth drop. We're probably the only ones that would ever have a chance to see it. And the message at the end is very clear. And you can see, although it's not said, that Steve Buscemi, Nucky Thompson, gets it. He's like, $2 million in one day? And this is all what they say legal. It's not real. It's a bigger scam to take advantage of more people than any mob boss ever did. It's destroyed more lives than any mob boss ever has, but the government says it's legal. So this is where Steve Buscemi is going in the future. No matter what, doesn't matter what happens to him at the end. You see, this is the future for the real criminal, not those animals shooting at each other up in New York. Let them, it's like at first, just a few episodes back, you're like, he's giving up his empire? What are you doing? You're making a huge mistake. Then 3 episodes later is like, no, this is the only smart one. These criminals, let the mob bosses fight it out over their turf. These are the animals, these idiots. They don't have the mind power is suggested in Boardwalk Empire to understand the real money that can be made with the real crimes associated with scams of financing in the stock market. Now think about the use of Joseph Kennedy, the patriarch of the entire Kennedy family dynasty. All the people you could have put in, and there's just hundreds of characters that come and go in Boardwalk Empire. It's a massive cast. They put real money into it. You just have to put in Joe Kennedy. You don't think that they're trying to say something there? Are you kidding me? And he's not integral to, you don't have to use Joe Kennedy unless you're trying to say something very clearly. And let me remind you of the most shocking part of all of this. I'll read it here. Prohibition led to many more unintended consequences because of the cat-and-mouse nature of Prohibition enforcement. While the 18th Amendment prohibited the manufacture, sale, and transportation of intoxicating beverages, it did not outlaw the possession or consumption of alcohol in the United States. Let me repeat that. It did not outlaw the possession or consumption of alcohol in the United States. All this stuff where people think, the speakeasies, and they all ran when the cops came, was nothing illegal about it. Now, how did this history get lost on the entire United States population? I mean, if like 500 people pour off a subway and all 500 will stop to answer a question, say, what would happen if somebody in 1925 during Prohibition had a bottle of wine in one hand and an open beer in another and walked right by a police station, how many people are going to, they're all going to say, well, he would be arrested or fined, or how many people are going to say, well, that'd be no problem because the possession and consumption wasn't illegal. How do they get away with like skewing history to such a degree? I didn't know this until, 3 or 4 weeks ago when I did the big video on Prohibition and what it was intended to really do. I had no idea. I thought, just like everybody else, that if you're in a speakeasy, you just hope the cops don't show up. Well, cops could show up, speakeasy, you're drinking at the bar, just like, hey, just raise your glass. It's not illegal to drink it. Unbelievable. Your best friends and my best friends, they'd run their scripts, they'd put their My Favorite Martian antennas up, and they'd get their download, and you'd hear the same sort of thing, of course, like, Matt, don't you know that, see, that type of enforcement would be impossible, would back up the court systems and the jails thousands of times over. You can't have everybody going to jail over one sip of alcohol. Matt, the good people that lay down your laws, Matt, they know this. That's why they left it out. No, that's not why it's there. There's a lot of reasons it's there. That reason is not one. You could very easily make the whole thing illegal if that was your intention, and then just hand out small fines. Like somebody in Atlantic City has a beer in a bag, it's $1.50 fine, and that $1.50 would be quite significant to that person. You don't have to tie up the courts and the jails. That's the scripts that your best friend would run. One of the reasons the consumption and possession of alcohol was not illegal as part of this Volstead Act. It was the 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution, has to be ratified by the states. It was the 21st Amendment that was the repeal of it. One reason is so the rich could keep drinking. It's that simple. The rich overall manage industry, corporations, not milk infrastructure, whether they understand not milk or not. They're generally taken care of on the back of not milk coattails. So the rich wouldn't think it would probably be around forever. They say, they're going to repeal this someday. Well, hey, Mr. Beeks in the orange section, how much alcohol should I stock up? Let's see, 1920, 1933, 13 years. Matt, that's another giveaway, the use of the 13. Yeah, probably is. I'm not big on the gematria because it's all over the place all the time. Once we recognize it the first time, I don't have to keep recognizing it. It's all over the place, and it's the way the whole reality functions. It's based on the strange math. That's the reality buttons and levers that these creeps understand. But they can go out and basically go buy 13 years worth of wine and vodka. And they got no problem for their private parties and their private bars and their private restaurants. Prohibition impact on the rich? Nothing. Basically nothing. As usual, it's the little guy that gets screwed over, who he only can afford 2 bottles of wine. And now what do we do? I got to go out and I got to go buy it and transport it. And that's the illegal. The little guy is doing all the illegal shit. He's got to get the ingredients in to make his turpentine horse shit in the bathtub. And we talked about this a few weeks back. I remember the kids getting bathed on one side of the bathtub and he's making his whiskey on the other. It's the little guy always that gets plunked in the ass. So Boardwalk Empire ends with a truth drop about the financier and the stock market criminal, but it starts with another truth drop, and there's truth drops throughout. But I talked about this in the video, 3 or 4 weeks back. The first episode, I think it is, of Boardwalk Empire, midnight is coming. The countdown to Prohibition is going to be at midnight the next day, and they all raise their glasses. 10, 9, 8, 7, and then, hey, Prohibition, and then they just keep drinking. It's not like I hadn't done any of the research at this point. It was actually watching that first episode of Boardwalk Empire where I started to really think like, wow, this created organized crime. And when that happens, I'm going to very quickly go to the next stepping stone, which is it's all intentional by these sons of bitches. But I'm thinking, watching this episode, going, well, did they slam their drink and then try to run home? Because at that point, I thought, consumption, possession was all illegal, just like everybody else did. But no, they just keep drinking. They keep drinking. 1 a.m, 2 a.m, 3 a.m. And then I figured, again, I didn't know anything about it. I'm watching this first episode of Boardwalk Empire. Well, they're not going to enforce the first hour. They're just going to enjoy themselves. Then it just keeps happening. And the Atlantic City restaurants, you can always get the alcohol in a better restaurant. doesn't make any sense even why the restaurant is worried about serving the alcohol. I don't know how much of this history is real. There's many scenes in Boardwalk Empire where this goody two-shoes agent, who I forget the name of the actor again, he's really good in Boardwalk Empire. He played General Zod in one of the newer Superman movies. He busts this restaurant, everybody's arrested, and well, if the possession and consumption is not illegal, why is the restaurant manager, and why are they doing a raid on a restaurant? It doesn't, I mean, how do they prove they didn't already have it? There's some history that who knows how it really went down. It's all so strange. And one wonders, I mean, I don't want to turn this into a, time travel, metaphysical, Mandela effect, a retrocausality type discussion, but there's so many strange things about history that just don't resonate with like the history that I knew in the 70s and 80s and 90s and growing up. And now I'm not saying it's a Mandela, it's changed, or I'm not going there, but here's just one more example of like, how do they, if it is just men and women in dark rooms, smoking rooms, changing history or manipulating the facts and circumstances, like how do they do this so consistently across the board? How is it that 250 million people in the United States would all answer the question in the same wrong way about the consumption and possession not being illegal? Why is Boardwalk Empire showing restaurants being busted and managers of restaurants going to jail? Well, they're possessing it. That's not illegal. And their people in the restaurant are consuming it. Well, they're not making it. Well, Matt, it could be proven that they had to transport it in. Well, maybe they got somebody else to carry it in. I don't know. The whole thing doesn't make any sense to me. But it does make sense in one regard. It's very consistent with what we call not milk. The strange way that we see it and perceive it and what it's out to do, out to change reality itself, out to get people to walk the Robert Frost road most traveled, which is screwing themselves spiritually. This whole thing with prohibition is very consistent with everything we've learned about this thing we call not milk. Let me read this to you. The Volstead Act, the federal law that provides for the enforcement of prohibition, also left enough loopholes and quirks that it opened the door to a myriad of schemes to evade the dry mandate. So the people that put the Volstead Act in place, they just didn't catch these loopholes. See, somebody like me, you're a conspiracy you would say the loopholes were there on purpose. And Uncle Joe at the Thanksgiving table would say, Matt, why do you always have to think that way? What happened to you, son? These are in Congress and the Senate and the administrative bloated Jabba the Hutt agencies. These are good people that care about you and that care about your family. Don't always make it seem like they're scheming to screw people over on purpose. Where did you get such a negative outlook on the world, Matt? It's a shame to be you. Uncle Joe, I only say things like that because you could go into a second grade classroom and they could do better typically than what's put forth for the people. The second grade classroom could eliminate the loopholes and write up the Volstead Act and the 18th Amendment better than Congress and those good people. So when the second graders could do it better, then I'm sorry, then that kind of tips me off that maybe something else is going on here. That's why it's always complicated. If you have hundreds or thousands of pages of legalese that nobody can understand, it creates situations for loopholes and ways around for those in power, those in control, the giant law firms that can understand it. Almost anything can be done simply in a half page. That eliminates the loopholes. That's why it's never simple. That's why Obamacare basically did nothing but eliminate pre-existing condition exclusions by insurance companies. What Obamacare did literally could have been done in a few sentences. It's over 2,000 pages with 20,000 pages of HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, administrative backup or interpretation legislation. It was put there so governments could gain more control. So there would be more loopholes for their friends and cronies, but that's, they're ultimately not at the highest evil level doesn't care about that stuff. I think it throws bones in that regard every so often. It doesn't care about money. But, sometimes, again, if there's an infrastructure that supports it or serves it, even if they're not even aware of it inside the infrastructure, that infrastructure needs to be rewarded and motivated to act in a certain way that benefits not milk, even if they don't even know the outer ring or the screen even exists. So it's always complicated, and it's so simple to see the reason of why everything is complicated. And it's because of things like Obamacare, where I'm sure the Henry Kissinger types think of the populace as cattle, as the great unwashed, as the proletariat. Obamacare, 5 years of back and forth and legal maneuvering, and every night headlines on the news, and how will the Supreme Court rule, and you wait months for that, and it passed, and then how much trillions of dollars spent, everybody has a different mark on how much was spent, 20-some thousand pages of HHS regulation, 6 million people kicked off their health insurance plan the moment it went in because it didn't have little provisions like smoking cessation, a complete disruption of everything with trillions wasted. And you know what we got? The 9th level of Metroid. What did we get? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But okay, a few sentences. The liberals, the Atlantic magazine readers will come forth and say, well, it eliminated pre-existing conditions. Insurance companies can't use that against somebody. And students can stay under their parents' plans up to age 26 if they're a full-time student. Oh, so after 5 years of back and forth, trillions of dollars spent, over 22,000 total pages of statute and regulation, we got things that could have been written out in maybe 4 sentences. Maybe Henry Kissinger's right. Nobody seems to really care. There's some objection once in a while on the Republican or conservative side. Incredibly, the liberals or Democrats defend it. They defend it and ask for more of it. It is a psychosis. It is Obamacare by itself exposed that nothing makes sense, that everything is a fraud and a farce. And to this day, if I start talking about it in front of my family, I'm just one of those people. It is truly unfathomable, the situation we find ourselves in today, folks. I guess I'll just go back to the old book and add one more into the, what are the chances this could happen? And it's like, 50 pages between that and if the world were real, this couldn't happen. Let's see, which one would it be? Would it be, what are the chances? Or what are the chances that almost no one in the United States from age 10 to age 80 understands that Prohibition allowed the consumption and storage or possession of alcohol? How's that possible? And then you could do another one, Matt, if the world were real. If the world were real, Prohibition, the Volstead Act, would have done the most basic thing and made consumption of alcohol legal, because that's what everybody thinks it is. You could just make it consumption illegal, then you don't have to worry about all the other stuff, unless you want to create loopholes for your rich friends. But you have to be a conspiracy person to push forward that idea. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the time. I'm approaching 33 minutes in terms of this video, so I have to stop now. Or I have to go into 34, 35, 36, 37 minutes. I can't possibly stop a video in 33 where you have these like troll types, or it's like downloaded truthers like, oh, he stopped a video at 33 minutes and something like that could never happen. Oh, I knew Matt must be one of these people. This is one thing that's truly starting to bother me. I've been at this for 14 years, sitting in the same little spare bedroom here. There's nothing really secret going on here. I've been for over 20 years in every white pages directory, every yellow pages or whatever. I never blocked my address or got under a pseudonym or a pseudo name or these weird accusations. My name is Matt McKinley. Not hard to find. Okay, I'm not inviting anybody to come down my driveway. I'm very clearly no trespassing signs or whatever. But, here's the deal. Guys, people are like, oh, he's one of these people. There was a comment in the last video, I think it was. It was like, Matt, I appreciate what you do. And, nobody's really going to understand a lot of what you put forth. Why do you do what you do, Matt? And then, okay, that's kind of nice. But then the last part was like, this weird shit happens again. It's like, Matt, is this like the last step in your initiation? Like, what does that even mean? Stop. Just make it stop. There's nothing in my sweatshirt. Make it stop. What does that mean? Is that the last part of your initiation? I've been in this spare bedroom for over 14 years making these videos. I've never run an ad on YouTube. Some people say, you gave away hundreds of thousands of dollars. You must not need it. Oh, I need it. I was for many years I was drawing off the 401k to put food on the table. All right. Yeah. Out of just I wouldn't take the dirty money. Never ran an ad. Never will run an ad. People, this is the last step of your initiation. What does that even mean? It's just, oh my God. And these types of comments, everybody that goes there, there's something in your sweatshirt, Matt. Oh, the video is 33. Everything. The one great thing about this platform is how easy it is. A few clicks and gone from the channel. Thanks for listening.